In a world where people are being erased, we're here to shine a spotlight on some amazing women because it's Women's History Month. Let's get ready to unload.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
Hello, welcome everybody. Happy March. We're done with February. Holy cow.
Yeah, it feels like it was a long decade in February.
It was the longest, shortest month I've ever flippin' seen.
Yeah. Kind of like that.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Hello to people in the live chat. If you're watching later, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell for notifications so you can join us for future live chats. We love to see folks and engage with them and talk with them, like the wonderful Theoretically and Ryan Coltastic. And this Wes fellow that seems to stalk our page all I don't know. He's just here.
Okay, where is Ryan Coltastic? I haven't talked to her in a while.
She's right there in the side chat.
In the chat.
Hello.
Okay.
And hello, Alma
Hi.
and Mary. How are you two this month, this day, circling with the world, etc.?
Well, so far.
Ember, have you seen the meme? The horrors persist, but so do I.
Yeah, kind of like that.
I very much feel. Oh, nope, we don't want to do that.
Or have you ever heard of the saying that the army has, which is like, "Oh, I'm living the dream," but some of us say things like, "Oh, but it keeps turning into a nightmare."
Well, I mean, the lucid dreaming is a skill that can be taught, and then you can kick the nightmare's ass.
That part.
So we're here to talk about some awesome frickin' women, and I don't know about y'all, but I got excited. I had to cut my list down. I'm like, there are so many cool people. Who are y'all excited about to celebrate today? Of course, we can't get to all the women worthy of celebrating, of course. There's too many.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Half of all humans.
That is a lot, but the thing is that most of them are not even well known because, history is usually center of anything that the male counterparts have been doing. So, but still it's good that we can shine a light into the lives of those women.
Absolutely. Yeah, fame is not a prerequisite for greatness. I mean, I guess we all set our own criteria for what it is that we admire in another person. Like, it's not fame, but like what they've accomplished or what they thought or what they taught or anything really,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am. Way back when in 2012, I was going through a divorce, and I was a single parent, and the other parent wasn't in the country. And there were two women that did, Sean and Valerie, they did an exponential amount of like things with me. One of the things that really stuck out to me is when Valerie would take my kid to the store. It's just a simple thing, right? You're just taking your kid and your friend's kid to the store. And people were, unbearably cruel to her because she happened to be a Black woman with a white kid in a store.
Oh.
And that the The fact that
Yeah.
Valerie still exists is something I admire. The fortitude to do what she thinks is right, despite how people react and respond, is something I admire.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad that people, I mean, it's the 21st fucking century. Why are people still like this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If we knew, we could fix it, but it's
Look, I don't even know what the problem was. Like what?
What? The adoption exists. Like, what's the problem?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
What was the problem? The real problem is people's inherent bias that continues to flavor interactions with other people. And the thing is I don't know how I would have survived the years that I was going through this divorce, because it took years for me to go through this divorce.
Wow.
yeah, sometimes the legal process is
Oh, you
unpleasant.
have no idea. You have no idea. But I don't even know how I would have survived without those two. So, anyways, thank you. I'm really grateful I got to know these women and be around them, and that I got to see some of the things that they experience in life.
Hell yeah. It broadens everybody's horizons. And I suppose I'll take this opportunity, since I have a cool segue, to talk about one of the people that I want to shine a spotlight on, who specialized in broadening other people's horizons. This is Hypatia of Alexandria. And I bigified her a little too much, so I got to move over here. She lived around the 3rd century, 4th century. She was a philosopher. She was a woman philosopher who was just accepted in her time. And that's an important cultural note in and of itself, because people make out like women have always been subordinate to men, have always been property, or this or that or the other. That's true for some cultures, but not universally. She lived in Alexandria, a city of learning, the Library of Alexandria. She was one of the last librarians, and it was fine. Nobody cared until the Christians started taking over, and then they cared. She died a very violent death at the hands of Christians, who then proceeded to sack the library. But I don't want to talk about how she died. I want to talk about how she lived, and absolutely mind-blowing stuff. She was a prominent thinker who taught both philosophy and astronomy. And in fact, one of her greatest achievements was, you're probably familiar with the Ptolemaic solar system, the old geocentric model where the planets go around the Earth, and they had to keep adding epicycles and deferents to make the planet's movements make sense on the model, because it was so obviously wrong. It could not work. She was such a brilliant mathematician. She made it work. She spent much of her career making the calculations necessary to compute what the epicycles and deferents had to be in order for the Ptolemaic system to match reasonably well with reality. On the one hand, her mathematics, her work, made it possible for the church to continue to promote the Ptolemaic system to the exclusion of a heliocentric model for hundreds of years, almost 1,000 years. That's how solid her math was. But on the flip side, that's how solid her math was. Which, whenever a person tells you women can't do math,
There is.
But she wrote a commentary on Diophantus's 13-volume set Arithmetica, which we've lost most of because, again, the Library of Alexandria got demolished by the Christians. But we have some of her writings, which, because she was critiquing the older Greek writings, preserved the things she was critiquing. And so much of what we retain about old Greek mathematical knowledge comes to us through her writings, or at least what survives of them. We've lost so much. And even now, after our great, Age of Enlightenment and Renaissance and whatnot, we still haven't recovered. It blows my mind every time I learn about all the stuff we've lost. We think of our present day as being so superior to every other time in history. There's shit people knew 2,000 years ago we still haven't figured out again. But I do digress. The point is, her work preserved some knowledge that we wouldn't have otherwise had. She also, despite how she died, was very tolerant towards Christians. She taught at the attached university, which, you know, existed to support the library, as opposed to the other way around, how we do it today. Don't let these English people tell you that, you know, Cambridge and Oxford are the oldest universities. Fuck that. The Greeks and Romans had universities in their major centers of learning, like Alexandria. But that's neither here nor there. She had a bunch of students that she taught, several of them including Synesius, who became a future bishop. When you start mixing English with other languages, I don't even know. He was the bishop of Ptolemais, the city named for Ptolemy. Orestes, who was the Roman prefect of Alexandria. Cyril, who became the bishop of Alexandria. She just, a whole bunch of very well-known historical figures were her students. And it's just, she's a really fucking cool person, in my humble opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I think
you're right.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, do you guys want to do a person?
Sure.
I have more.
I can't follow that up. I mean, like, you know, like that's kind of like Ember's over here and got everything together just perfectly, and it just. Oh,
I was still putting touches on that a moment before we went live. I'm just constantly adding on until the very last second.
Well, I will tell you that I think that sometimes I thought, and I can't think of the name of it because this is my trauma brain thinking, right? But I thought that there were times that we had matriarchal societies as well that people are very unfamiliar with.
We've lost so much history. For example, some of the old writings that survive only by being, you know, citations of citations of citations and so forth. But it's believed that the old pre-Minoan culture on that island with the I think it was Crete. I'm not entirely sure, but it's believed they were matriarchal before King Midas came and ruined everything. And what we've managed to reconstruct from their culture is fascinating. Women ran the government, and men existed basically to fight wars for them and otherwise, you know, do servant type stuff, like, you know, bring me a sandwich, lad, you know, that sort of thing. And if it weren't for a volcano blowing up at just the wrong time, you know, there were two main civilizations at the time. There was Mesopotamia, and there was the pre-Minoans. And the volcano goes off, and they never really got to face off and see which culture would dominate. And alas, if only that volcano had gone off the other way, we may have a very different world. But that's
Do you feel like that the volcano was divinely inspired?
It was an eruption.
Oh my. Anyway.
Yeah. But there's a lot of non-European stuff. I mean, I'm sure everybody's broadly familiar with the Amazons, but there's more. I mean, in Celtic culture in Northern Europe, women were mostly equal to men, except when they were either pregnant or caring for a young child, in which case they outranked every man, including the chieftain. If a woman with a newborn needed something, and it didn't matter if you were the chieftain, you did what she asked immediately. And that was pretty cool.
What other culture had a little bit of more equality than everybody on their time? The pirates of the Caribbean. Believe it or not, they were like very equality driven when it comes to the women pirates. They didn't care. Like there was a lot of women pirates a few women pirates in that time. Even the biggest pirate in the world was the Queen Pirate of China, and she had like thousands and thousands of ships on her command.
Hell yeah. I've heard of women pirates in the Eastern Seas. There's some interesting legends. I don't know about the Caribbean though. The only two women pirates I know about from there were what were their names? Anne Bonny.
And
I
Bonnie.
forget. Yeah, but they sailed with Calico Jack. I can't believe I'm blanking on a freaking woman pirate, but here we are.
Yeah.
It's been a rough month. But yeah, they
They
both
also
had to
were
pretend to
like,
be men for a long time.
and a lot of them didn't care about marriages between people of the same gender or the same sex, and they didn't
Mary
care
Read.
about Mary Read. Oh yeah.
Yeah, praise the Googles.
Praise the
I
Google.
almost added them to my list, but I have so many people already. I'm like, everybody does the pirate. I do actually have a pirate though. Would you like to learn about Grace O'Malley, the uh how did I phrase this early? Oh, I'm losing track of everything. The Pirate Queen of Ireland. So
Oh, okay.
there's okay, here's a statue. So there's a lot of legends about this particular person. She took over the leadership of her father's lands and estates after he died, rather than passing it on to a cousin or some other crap like that. And this was in the Elizabethan era, right? So Elizabeth was actively conquering Ireland. And so many Irish lords were doing their own thing. Some were teaming up with the English to try to win what they could get. Some were banding together to fight the English. And some were just trying to steal from everybody on land, sea, however they could. It was total chaos in frickin' Ireland. She took over the lordship, but also her father's area, which I can't pronounce because I never learned proper Irish. Chogade, something like that. It's the modern city of Connacht. That's where her statue is. But I do digress. Yeah, she had a brother, and I was like, nope, I'm taking over, and she just started conquering things and taking whatever the hell she wanted. Her half brother was taken captive by the English governor of modern Connacht. Because the way the English conquered was they just declared they now owned a territory, and then the locals would fight them over it. So there was both, local lords as well as an official nominal English. It's the same way there's bishops and cardinals of every region on earth. But there's also other ministers there because the Pope just goes, oh, this is all Catholic territory. That sort of deal. And for the same reason. But she sailed to England, not speaking English. She never learned English. She refused to because they were the conquerors. She confronted Queen Elizabeth I. And she met her a couple of different times. The first time, she attacked her with a knife. The royal bodyguards completely failed. Or she was clever and crafty. We don't know. Later on, she eventually worked out some sort of peace deal with the English on the grounds that she would leave the English the hell alone as long as she had English royal warrant to use her ships to attack anybody else she wanted. And then if anybody sailed anywhere near Ireland, her ships would just ambush them, and she would pirate the hell out of them. Her story is wild. I could do a whole frickin' episode just about her. Amazing person. And I mean, how she's got musicals written about her. It's crazy. But I thought, Pirate Queen of Ireland. I can't not talk about her on the show,
Yeah. Well, I have another person. Her name is Matilda. I think I have the picture. Okay. Matilde Montoya. She was the first Mexican woman who got a degree in the medical school. Mexican women were not allowed in the university at that point the only way that any woman could get into the higher education after elementary school was either to become a nun or, in her case, was to attend the school for the midwives. And in that time, being a midwife was like, for the doctors, was like the lowest of the low. Like, even the name midwife was used as an insult. But she didn't give up. She wanted to go to the medical school, and she went all the way to the president of Mexico at that time to ask for the opportunity to study. And she got her degree in let me see, when, in 1882.
Hell yeah.
And the reason in why they didn't allow women in medical school at that time was because they
Because
have
she
to
would distract the boys.
part of that, and the other part was like, they have to dissect cadavers there, and because they were nude, they were like, oh, a lady should not see that. So, yeah.
Right. So to be clear, women are expected to give birth, and normally babies are nude. Women are expected to take care of the dead, washing and cleaning their husbands and preparing them for burial. But you can't. It would be wrong to take a look at someone else's dead for the purpose of learning how to heal people.
Exactly.
In the name of protection. Oh, my bad.
For decency.
My bad. My bad. Okay.
I know. What were we thinking? My goodness.
Yeah. And some of the doctors in the university even had a campaign against her because they didn't want her in the school, because they were saying that she was a Freemason or she was not Catholic. That's a lie.
I'm sorry. Of course they did, Alma. Of course
Yeah.
they did. Of course. Okay.
Wowzers. Yeah, it's absolutely wild. Like Karen Butcher points out in the side chat, women have been healers literally throughout all of history, but can't be doctors. And that's, yeah, why not use female cadavers unless you're worried about doing surgery on genitals? It just it's freaking crazy. It's wild.
That is also another good point, because I don't know if you have read about this, but most of the medicine on women are really behind in everything, because everything was based on men. Every medical achievement has been based on the anatomy of men. So there are things that they still don't know how to figure out because they have never been tested on women. Like, it's recently that they were like, oh, you know what? Maybe it would be a good idea to give them pain medication for an insertion of an IUD. Maybe it's a good idea.
Maybe.
Oh my God.
Maybe.
Oh my God. That whole thing. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a valid criticism. It's weirdly only been coming out lately as we're looking back at old medical data and we're saying, the sample size is large enough, but the population is exclusively male. What up with that?
Yeah.
Why
women never get sick?
Why is it that medicine tends to investigate specifically men and white men and use that as the overarching criteria for diagnoses? Like, I would like to think it's 2025. We could do better than that in the field of medicine.
Well, with newer studies, we are doing better. It's still not perfect, but we are doing better. It's unfortunately, it's I mean, remember, it's only been since the 1970s that women in the U.S. anyway could even have our own freaking bank accounts.
Exactly.
So it is.
And we couldn't own property until like the 1980s, was it? We couldn't own businesses.
Yep.
I'm not sure about the date on that one, but somewhere in that vicinity.
I'm pretty sure it was in the 1980s.
So yeah, there's a lot of overlooking been going on. It's
Yeah.
It was 1988.
Holy.
It's the Women Business Ownership Act of 1988 allowed women to own businesses and take out loans without a male co-signer. Signed
For fuck's
into
sake.
law by Reagan, October 25, 1988.
Wow.
I was 4 years old when that was passed.
Can we just take a second to appreciate how far the Overton window has shifted when something Reagan did looks progressive and pro-woman? Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
I know. And I'm like, wait, Reagan did this?
Yeah. Yep.
And like, even like I grew up in America, and like, one of the things I talk about is like, I didn't even know that women could have bank accounts or own businesses until I escaped, which was in 2004. Like, that's
Yeah.
I didn't really
Yeah, you don't know what there is until
Yeah,
you get out there and can
yeah.
see for yourself.
you don't
It's-
know what you don't know until you know.
You know?
Exactly.
You have to also like understand that just because something is the way that it's always been, the way of our forefathers or our ancestors, or this is what they tell you, that doesn't make it inherently good.
Oh yeah, appeal to tradition is the most horrible reason to do anything ever. Although I don't hold that to an absolute standard. I realized fairly young that Christianity was total bullshit, and therefore there was no reason for Christmas. But I liked Christmas, so let's keep doing that,
I just like to give gifts to people, and make good food and have decorations that bring me joy. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, decorations and oh my goodness, the darkest part of the year, the middle of winter, it's so cold. Lights. Yes, we need a festival of lights. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Why can't we just celebrate the Festival of Lights overall? Like, that would be...
I know.
That
I've
would
been
be
pushing
so
for us all to change
amazing.
over to Lunar New Year. I mean, how cool is Lunar New Year? Like, you get the big freaking paper lanterns and everybody's exchanging red envelopes, and it's a whole thing. But no, it's Chinese culture. Well, you know what? The Chinese were around for 6,000 years plus before the communists took over. They had a few good ideas in that time. Just saying.
But anyways, that's like kind of the point is throughout history. The way that the history books are written, often we don't really have a lot to gauge off of what women have contributed to history. Like, for me, the things that I remember from my Amish school history books is like Susan B. Anthony. I remember that making a mark on me. And her contributions, while important, they don't actually show all the contributions, or they don't show, there's not the variety of like all of these women who have made these contributions, while we have man after man after man that's trotted out as like and held up as an exemplary contributor to history, but women have not been given that same space or that same they don't have a chapter in a book, in our school book, necessarily the same way. They don't have the same amount of chapters. There's no equality.
Oh no,
Exactly.
no goodness no. Like Eli Whitney, he invented the cotton gin. Fucking fantastic. We found out about what's his name who did all the peanut butters. Just endless amounts of shit. But when it comes to the women's rights movement, it's basically okay, Susan B. Anthony and friends. As it happens, I have one of those friends whom I was going to bring up anyway because she's also related to Alma's most recent person. It is Dr. Mary Walker. she is special for a whole bunch of reasons, not the least of which being that she's a local hero. She was born here in Oswego, New York, and she's buried nearby. But she's a really cool person on the national stage, the worldwide stage when it comes to women's suffrage. So she was born in 1832, and she was an abolitionist, a prohibitionist, a prisoner of war in the Civil War, and a surgeon, but also the only woman in history to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor from the United States government, which they took away from her at one point, but we'll get to that in a second. In 1855, she earned her medical degree at Syracuse Medical College, which is today Syracuse University, or it got amalgamated into Syracuse University, something like that. She married and started a medical practice. After the Civil War broke out, they had one of the battles near Washington, D.C. She showed up. They needed physicians. They didn't want her because she's a woman, but they could not turn her away. So she started treating patients. She eventually started following the Army of the Cumberland, the 52nd Ohio Infantry, and eventually she got captured by Confederate forces. But until then, she put a lot of time and effort into treating Union soldiers. The Confederates captured her, decided she was a spy because she was treating injured civilians. Got sent to Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy, spent 4 months as a POW there until she was returned in a prisoner exchange for some major or whatever. And then she continued practicing medicine as a surgeon. Freaking Civil War. This was, Sawbones time. This is brutal, gruesome stuff, but also the turning point where we started to move towards more modern medicine instead of, leeches for everything or have some cocaine. And so it was a real turning point for medicine, the most gruesome war in history up till that point, and she's right there in the trenches. So after the war, they gave her the Medal of Honor because of her ridiculous amounts of bravery. I mean, even for a man, she did some crazy shit. But the fact that she was a woman doing it totally just blew people away. But the Medal of Honor was actually a substitute award. President Lincoln wanted to give her something else that she wasn't eligible for because she did not hold a military rank. Since there's no requirement, or it wasn't at the time, for the Medal of Honor to go to a commissioned officer, that was the lesser award that they could give her at the time. It's just wild that one of the hospitals in Washington, D.C., I forget the other name. It's Whitman Walker is named for her and Walt Whitman, who apparently did some nursing in the Washington area during the Civil War as well. There's so much to her. But the reason I bring her up right when I did is because she also put a lot of effort into the suffragist movement. And not a lot of people liked her. She hung out with Susan B. Anthony and some of the others. But she insisted on wearing men's clothes because, fuck you, I'm going to wear my clothes, And it put some people off. She also had a philosophical position that women already had the right to vote, and it was on Congress to enact legislation creating a mechanism to make that possible, that they were failing in their duty to let women vote, which they already had the legal right to do, and that wasn't super popular in the U.S., but she had a pretty big audience in the UK, so she kept making trips to England and campaigning for women's suffrage there. And this went on for all the some time. She eventually retired from her medical practice, moved back to Oswego, set up a farm, had herself a grand old time. As we were getting closer to the suffrage amendment becoming a reality, Congress decided to add a pension for those who had won the Medal of Honor. And so they asked the Army and the Navy to revise the records and remove some disgraceful listings. And they removed over 900 people from the rolls because there was apparently an entire division was awarded the medal for some clerical error. I'm not even sure how that happens. But she was included. They rescinded her medal. They were like, no, she shouldn't have been given a medal. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman or she was a suffragist. It just so happens. It's just who knows? Who's to say?
It's not by
Nobody
design.
knows.
We don't. It's never, because we can't give women recognition for the labor they've done, and we just want to be able to exploit their labor without recognizing them for it. Right? Right. It's never because of that.
No,
She did manage to pull off some lasting change. For instance, she was a member of the Central Women's Suffrage Bureau in Washington, D.C., continuing to work for the government in an advisory capacity. Managed to get funds for a female professor at Howard University Medical School. She attempted to register to vote in 1871, but was turned away. The initial stance of the movement following her lead was to claim that women already had the right to vote and Congress only needed to enact enabling legislation. Because of her efforts, of course, other suffragists as well, but in part because of her efforts, we eventually got the constitutional amendment. But they took away her medal. She never gave back the physical medal. They still have it in the Historical Society here in Oswego. And there's a big frickin' statue of her out in front of Town Hall, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. But the honorarium of the medal wasn't restored to her until the Ford administration, and Ford himself did not do it. He publicly said he did not want to do it. But the people who run the bureaucracy underneath him were like, no, this is fucked up. And they just announced that they'd done it. And then he had to go along with it. Which, I mean, that's kind of the same way we got suffrage done. The 19th Amendment. Sometimes you got to play dirty tricks. But she's a really freaking cool person who did a whole bunch of ridiculously outrageous stuff and lived a powerful life. The fact that she's a local almost doesn't have anything to do with it, because she was an early female physician. She was a doctor. She practiced in war. She was a prisoner of war. She got injured, in fact. She had permanent muscle damage from there's so much about her. Like everybody that we mentioned today, there's so much more to this story. We're only getting to the highlights, but she is a really freaking cool person I thought y'all should know about.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I also have somebody else. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alma. Go ahead, Alma.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you know who else I think people should know about? Have you ever heard of Ruth Ellis?
It rings a bell.
In Detroit, Michigan, there is today a center called Ruth Ellis Center. The reason being is, even though Ruth was born in Springfield, Illinois in 1899, she was in an integrated neighborhood, but her family still experienced discrimination, and they ended up moving to Detroit in 1938. She started in the 1940s providing housing for gay Black people. And that center is now the Ruth Ellis Center in Michigan that still provides housing. Like, even though she's no longer around, her life's work is still ongoing. And the things that she started doing, like providing housing and access to resources, still exist today because of the work that she did.
Hell yeah! If she's the person that I'm looking at right now, lived 1899 through 2000.
Yes.
So she lived across 3 different centuries. She was an open lesbian.
Look, yeah.
Yeah, in a time when, I mean, literally, gay rights wasn't even on the radar in the frickin' 1940s.
Right? Like, we were still trying to get the right for women to vote, and, let's have a bank account without men approving of it or monitoring it.
Yeah, this page, I'll put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to learn more about it. But it says that during tough times, she was known for giving everything she had to those in need, particularly young people, for whom she bought books and food and even assisted with college tuition. And it, freaking wild! People came to her house to be themselves. It was a haven for gay African Americans. And because it was a private home, and people would party, sing, dance, play cards, just
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
crazy.
Whee.
Great shit. Yeah.
Rion, thank you so much for the sticker.
Hell
Thank you,
yeah.
Ember.
What do we
Thank you, Ryan.
have?
We love you. Oh,
Yee. It's a person popping out from behind a cloud. I love it. I mean, Ryan's YouTube channel is a goddess, so it works.
oh, shall we talk about Jezebel? Jezebel is a historical figure that I think we should all strive to be more like.
We love those Jezebel vibes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Alma, did you have somebody you wanted to talk about?
Oh, okay, yeah. Her name is Laureana Wright Wright Gonzalez. Their last name is different there because changed when she got married. She was a journalist in 1886, and she was one of the first Mexican women who was part of the women's suffragette, and also she wrote poetry, and she had a journal that was El Álbum de la Mujer. It will be the Journal of Women. The postulate that she had is that keeping women ignorant, it meant that they were treated no better than property. And to say that at that point in time, it was like spitting on everybody's face, because she was not supposed to say any of that. But she did, and she even criticized the policy of labor from Porfirio Diaz, even though she was like kind of like best friends with his wife. So she was like, I don't care who you are, I'm going to criticize you.
Equal opportunity, I guess.
She also founded a magazine called Violets of Anahuac, where she put the biographies of many women like Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, the Carmen Romero Rubio, and also histories of 29 indigenous women. And that was like the starting point for, taking everything about the European or white center histories, and put it the indigenous people on the front page. And that's something that wasn't done at that time either.
Yeah, nobody wanted to hear about how any, non-Europeans were. So Maya and I did a show, almost 2 years ago now, talking about the origins of the anti-vax movement. And long story short, it's racism. The initial smallpox inoculations were African medical technology. The Africans knew how to do inoculations, and the Europeans didn't like it because it was African.
Exactly. One of the books that she wrote was The Emancipation of Women through Study and Education. It
Hell
was
yeah.
printed. It was printed in 1892. 1891. I'm sorry, 1891.
That's pretty. That's really cool. I wonder how much that inspired the suffrage movement, because that was within a generation of when women got the right to vote in both the US and the UK. I honestly, I don't know what it is for the rest of Europe. I wonder
Mm.
when did
I
the other
don't know
European countries
either.
get? Yeah. It's a
Now
weird knowledge.
we need to go to the Google and find out.
Mexico women's got the right to vote until 1953. So yeah, it took a while
Damn.
in Mexico. Yep. And now we have a women president.
Hell yeah.
Oh, I did a Google search and I found this little article
Mhm.
that says that women's right to vote it's in the National Bibliothèque, which is from a European museum. But apparently it says the first voices in Europe to demand political participation for women were heard during the French Revolution
Yeah.
of 1848. These voices remained the exception. It was not until the last third of the 19th century that women's rights movement emerged in many countries. So Finland in 1906, Norway in 1913, Denmark in 1915, Germany, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Austria, Poland, Russia, 1918, the Netherlands, 1919, Czechoslovakia in 1920, Sweden in 1921, Ireland in 1922, the UK in 1928, Spain in 1931, France in 1944, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, and Hungary in 1945. 1946 is Italy, Romania, and 1947 is Malta. 1948 is Belgium, and 1952 is Greece, and 1971 Switzerland, and 1974 Portugal, and Liechtenstein in 1984. They've only had the right to vote for as long as I've been alive.
It's freaking wild.
Wow.
It's also interesting to note how these cluster. Like the majority of them are either right around World War I or just after World War II. 1944 for France, as France was being liberated, and then everybody else is 1945 through 1948 in that cluster. And then there's a gap. There's at least 20 years after each of these waves. It's very fascinating.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm sure we could do I'm sure there's people who do study this. We should find one of those people because I would like to talk to them about a lot of that. See,
I would like to interview
learning
them.
new shit. Yeah, we're learning new shit live on the air, and I love to see it. It's
Can
fantastic.
can I address this person just for a second? The one who said, may you learn something and stop. Wait, not that one. The one who said, may the Lord have mercy on all of you. Dear person, would you call it mercy when the Lord, who, if he exists, literally sat there and watched like a sadist as I was tortured as a child? Do you think that's mercy? Do you think it was mercy when my family and community sent 4 busloads of people to support the perpetrators of the torture in a courtroom? Do you think that was the Lord having mercy? If he exists? I'm just asking for a friend. But you have a great day now. Please don't come in here. You sought out this space. And if you want to be that kind of way and you don't want to hear what we have to say, you don't have to be here. You're choosing to be here. Have a day.
For real. Yeah, there's people all over our community with tremendous amounts of life experience that leads us to the inescapable conclusion that the kind of bullshit you're peddling is nonsense. We're happy to have you around. We're happy to talk to you. We're happy to educate you about whatever the subject of the show going on at the time is and answer questions about that subject. But you come in here being like, oh, I have all the answers about the universe. My thing is the thing. I have all the magic and you all are going to suffer. Bitch, we've already suffered. Fuck off.
Furthermore, that you're giving me the perfect opportunity to talk about this. Let me show y'all this. And the reason I want to talk about this, I'm going to tell you the reason. This is founded by a woman named Rachel Wengard. She is alive today. She is a practicing Amish woman. Let me show you a headline in here. It literally says, advocacy means action. Let me read to you the Amish Women's Quarterly magazine purpose. Amish Women Quarterly, a publication of Amish Women USA, has been carefully crafted to celebrate and elevate the voices, choices, and resources of Amish, Mennonite, and Anabaptist women across the United States. And her goal is not just to speak into the practicing women's voices, but also to speak to the power of the people who are no longer practicing, for whatever reason that may be. Perhaps you could learn something from Rachel Wengard, who is a devout believer. Thank you.
Hell yeah. All right. Fun with the trolls, notwithstanding.
It was.
I'm trying not to watch the clock, but
me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's part of the important things every show there's somebody who needs to be told off, and it has to be done. It's a
You know what? Yeah, you're right. But going back to the women's rights movement, do people know about Eleanor Roosevelt and the human rights petitioning that she did?
I don't
Probably
think they
not
know.
super well.
I believe it was Eleanor Roosevelt. I thought
she was an activist. I know a lot of she was FDR's wife. Yes. Okay. I'm trying to keep my Roosevelt straight because Americans love dynasties, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah, she did a whole bunch of campaigning for various equality issues. She did diplomacy behind her husband's back. Oh,
she was such a good woman, wasn't she?
Yeah.
It's like, I always think about this. It's like if you're put inside a cage, sometimes you operate with the tools you're given inside the cage.
Hell yeah.
That's true.
I mean, you have to. That's all you can do.
But that also doesn't mean that you're incapable. You still can do hard things. You can still advocate for human rights and civil rights for people.
Exactly.
Yeah. According to her quick Google biography here, after she was widowed in 1945, she virtually immediately took up the role of U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations General Assembly from 1945 to 1952, and took a leading role in designing the text and gaining international support for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Boy, she would be pissed that the United States has backed out of pretty much all of those at this point. Holy crow. She chaired that committee. That's fucking awesome.
How do you think she would feel if she saw and heard some of the things that are happening right now? Beyond pissed. Like, I think there would be more.
Yeah, she continued on for a long time, too. There's stuff in here going into the 1960s. John F. Kennedy created the Presidential Commission on the Status of Women, and she was the first chair of that commission.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and she left office because she died. She fought for human rights, for equal rights, and for women's rights until she fucking died. That is badass. She's literally relentless.
Persistent. You know, the
Mhm.
horrors
Yeah.
persist, but so do I. Thank you.
That's right.
I feel like her life is, from what I understand, her life is almost a reflection of that.
Yeah, very well could be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there was so much bad shit that happened in her life. Wow. Yeah, I mean obviously as not just a first lady, but arguably the first lady with the possible exception of Martha Washington. There's a lot of biography about her. You know what? I'll link that one too.
Yeah.
Just
There's a
drop
lot.
that in there. And this is just the quick Google result to Wikipedia. But the cool thing about Wikipedia is it links to the sources. So if you want to learn more about a specific thing that's claimed in the Wikipedia, you can pull up a whole article or something published by a different source about that. And there's so much information.
Yeah,
Wowzers.
it is.
Hell yeah.
Then there is also another brave woman that I want to show off here. Her name is Valentina Ramirez, also known as Juan Ramirez, not because she was transgender, but because she adopted that name in order to fight in the revolution. She was named the Lioness of Norotal because she was that badass. And nobody knew that it was a woman because she was really young at that time. The time of that picture, she was 17 years old, and she was already fighting. She was already a soldier, and she was already winning combats.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I knew about one from the Trans People in History project that I do. There was another person who was trans and used the revolution as a mechanism for creating and sustaining
Transition.
the male persona. And it's interesting how people took that in different. I mean, they say every adversity is an opportunity, and I wouldn't wish the necessity to have a war to win your independence and freedom as an opportunity. But if it's happening anyway, you know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's true. And it seems that she went up in the ranks of the army, and the only way that she was discovered that she was female, and because she got injured in a battle, and the doctor, of course, snitched on her.
Yeah, that
So
sadly
yeah,
happened a lot.
yeah,
There was a
and
person.
Mhm.
There was a person I just talked about on transpositions this past week who similar situation, another American Civil War veteran, except he'd been living as a man before the war broke out and continued after the war. Um, Later in life, he got hit by a car by his employer, who happened to be a state senator. Went to a hospital. The doctors noticed. I think that doctor actually kept his secret, but because of the broken leg, he couldn't work anymore, so they moved him for a home for soldiers and sailors. And then he had to go to a different hospital, and they were the ones who discovered and forcibly detransitioned him, and it was a whole frickin' thing. But
Oh,
what was cool about his story is that the members of his unit showed up and represented, and they're like, no, you will treat him like the soldier he is, because he's more of a man than your ass is. But it's just wild how, whenever you get a person who's assigned female at birth involved in anything military, everybody gets all fucking weird. And they want to
yeah,
like drive people out of the we're in the middle of a war. Let's take a competent fighter and be like, nope, you have the wrong stuff between your legs. You gotta go. The fuck?
exactly. And there was women that were already on the war. They used to be known as Adelitas, but they mostly did not fight. They were mostly following the troops around by, feeding the soldiers, being nurses, taking care of children. But still there was some of them who fought. And in this case, Valentina joined the military because her dad died, and he told her that his dream was to fight in the revolution. So because of that, she joined the military, and they said that nobody will mess with Juan Ramirez because they know that they were like going to lose. So because she was that good shooting and riding horses and everything. And it says here that there is a song named La Valentina. It was composed as a tribute to her. And there is also a film with the same name and was made in 1966.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh no, we lost our
I
Alma.
was like, what happened to
No, what
Alma?
We've just been blooped. It's
Yeah.
That was my bad. Sorry.
Oh,
I meant to take the screen down.
oh okay.
Oops.
you know.
Daisies. It
Yeah,
happens.
it's all those pesky funky buttons.
Well, you
Yeah.
know, like
All right,
speaking-
we've
go ahead.
probably got about I don't know what time we're supposed to wrap because we started late and everything is chaos. But I
We
think
are
we've got
an
about
hour
15
in.
minutes.
1 hour, I think.
Yeah, we're just over an hour live, but we did start
Mhm.
late, and so I think we traditionally wrap at the top of the next hour, which would be 7 p.m. Eastern. So I'm just trying to like keep track of
Oh,
what's happening and where and so forth, so we can keep the ship on course, as it were, as much as possible.
Are you trying to steer the ship, Ember?
Pirate?
I mean,
Pirate.
are you trying to be a
Avast, ye
queen
lubbers.
or something?
Oh, actually, hold on. Where's my thing?
Avast, ye lubbers.
I can't with you. Not today. Not today.
If I ever finish reprogramming my OBS, I'll have freaking graphics to go with it, and it'll be wonderful. But we don't have time for romance right now.
Oh,
I know there's never enough time, but you know who did have time for romance? Apparently, is this person. You know what? I can make her bigger. We can do that. There we go. This is an old school painting
There you
thing.
go.
Yeah. This is Alyssa, the founder and original empress of Carthage, which, started as a Phoenician city-state, but quickly outgrew the whole nonsense over there. 814 BCE. In most accounts, she was the queen of the Phoenician city-state of Tyre, located in modern Lebanon, and spoken of a bit in the Bible, you may recall. But she got sick of the nonsense. She didn't like being part of the Phoenicians, so she went and founded her own city way the fuck over in what's now modern Libya. And we know very little of Carthage, particularly its founding, in part because the Romans destroyed it. And I don't mean they just leveled the city. They like salted the earth and all this crap. They did not want Carthage coming
Wow.
back. The Punic Wars were a thing. There were 3 of them. Hannibal crossing the Alps, part of the Punic Wars. But I do digress. So the oldest references to her come from Timasius, who lived in Sicily and died around 260 BCE. But she does have, like Romulus and Remus, there's legends about the founding of these cities, and that's where she comes in. And Sicilian history remembers some of these legends. Virgil wrote an epic, the Aeneid, written around 31 BCE, published posthumously, so around 19 BCE, but it tells the story of the Trojan hero, Aeneas. And he's fleeing from a ruthless people and whatnot. But yeah, he encounters she's called Dido in the Aeneid, but this is her, Elisa. Possibly no relation to the Elysian Plains. I don't really know because history keeps getting rewritten. Weird how that happens. But because she's a wise leader, she's just like, hell with this tyranny. I am out. She goes and founds Carthage and immediately makes it prosper. The Trojan hero Aeneas comes and speaks to her about the Trojan War. They fall in love, but he has to go. I don't know why he's in Carthage during the Trojan War. I should probably like read the Aeneid or something, but I'm American. I have a limit of the amount of historical epic plays I'm allowed to read in a given year. But the legends, they're Punic in origin, of course, because Carthage. It's just that they actually had a lot of Greek influence in addition to the Phoenician culture. It's suggested that Dido is an epithet from the same Semitic root as David. Biblical influence, Levant stuff. But others believe that it means the wanderer, which, those of you who know me know that that's part of my actual IRL name, but that's a whole other story. But I do relate to it. But I mean, here we have a time in far antiquity, right? Pre-Roman Empire. And here's a woman founding what would become such a powerful nation that it would rival Rome. If history had gone a little bit differently, we might all be Carthaginian instead of descended from the Roman Empire. And who knows how different things would be. But Carthage is in Africa. So she's a woman ruler, founded one of the greatest powers history has ever known. And she did it in frickin' Africa. So, there's all these cultures that just constantly get overlooked and foreshadowed. And there's a lot more to be said about Africa, too. But that's, different people's stories for different times. There's so many great empires that totally, they get lost and overshadowed. I could rant. I could rant for ages.
Yeah.
But that's Elisa. She's got a whole bunch of really cool stuff.
I have one last one, but I don't know if I can even show. Well, you show it. The name of this painter is Artemisa Gentileschi, and this painted is like an enemy, paint on the Middle Ages, like the Baroque paintings and everything. Well, she was essay, and this guy that is dying here, that's the guy who did it, and she painted like that as a revenge.
Okay, hell yeah. I mean, paintings as revenge that's a time-honored tradition in and of itself. But that is a hell of a painting. That would be good today. It's got that old master style to some extent. I mean, hell, that's even Rembrandt lighting on her face. The way there's just that one little spot on her cheekbone.
Yeah.
That shit's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. She's awesome. Oh, Mary, I think you're muted.
Oh, I just feel like that painting actually belongs in a famous museum or something, like it should be displayed with a story. Like we need a plaque with a little story behind it. What inspiration did you have to paint this?
She supposedly said that it was the story of Judith, when she beheaded the Assyrian Holofernes. But in reality, the face of the person who's been decapitated slowly and painfully is the guy who assaulted her.
Fucking love it. I mean, we know a lot of male artists have done that. Dante put a whole bunch of his personal enemies IRL in, or not Dante, the person who did the illustrations to go along with the Divine Comedy. But whatever. Michelangelo put some of his enemies in the roof of the Sistine Chapel. It's an old tradition, but it's really cool that she's like, you know what? You're immortalized, fucker. I love that. All right, we are very rapidly running out of time. I do want to mention as Mary pointed out, there are so many cool women. I love Marie Curie. She is one of my personal heroes. She is, to date, the only person ever to win Nobel Prizes in 2 separate categories. She is an intellectual powerhouse of physics, chemistry, and she knew a whole bunch about a whole bunch of other stuff. But that's like, because science is like my whole thing, that's like really on point. And I'm like, I want to do, bring some other people I wouldn't ordinarily talk about, which is why I didn't bring her up. Also, she's so famous, most people know about her. But yeah, there's her, there's Hedy Lamarr, who was a famous actress, but also invented some cool technology, including stuff that led to Wi-Fi. A couple people that I had on my list to get to if we had time and it came to that.
Yeah. Oh,
At
there is
Shepsut.
one thing about Marie Curie that I
Yeah.
thought it was very interesting, that she helped other women to get education and to pursue scientific careers. And she said that they said she had at least 45 women working on her lab, and they made significant contributions to science too.
Fuck yeah. I hadn't heard that, but I could totally see her doing it. Yeah.
See, my
Absolutely.
introduction to her was literally reading about her. I ended up borrowing some library books because I knew nothing about her. And just reading about her life, I was so impressed. Because part of what we often don't see is we don't see women empowering women. And part of what people really, really love about Amish culture is they say, well, Amish people have all this community, right? The one thing that I can tell you is that when you build community and you help each other, we are stronger together than we ever were alone.
I mean, that's the power of community. That's why we built civilizations in the first fucking place, because we can do more working together than we can alone.
And she did that. She did that. She didn't just do that in like, oh, I'm giving you, I'm your hero, rescuer, savior way. She did that by creating spaces for women to be valued and for their contributions to be valued.
Yeah, it definitely, it takes work to make room for a person to do stuff. Because like even today, we have a situation. There's YouTube. Anybody could theoretically make a channel and do anything they want, but you need community support, or you're just talking into the void.
Okay. Anybody could theoretically make a channel that do anything they want, like dressing up their child in a little house on the prairie outfit, and then mislabeling it as Amish, and creating even more content where you're basically just exploiting Amish, number one, exploiting your child, and how dare anybody say anything about it, how wrong that is. Because millions of people have liked it. Oh, so delightful. Anyway, I digress.
No, it's fair. That kind of shit. It's random. But it pisses me off too. I'm like, what is it with all the, it makes me want to do, what is wrong with mainstream culture, I guess, for lack of a better term, because there's so many Karens who are just taking their children and exploiting the hell out of them for a gazillion clicks. I'm like, but why though?
And then, like, the irony of it for me is always the part where, y'all know me. I think most of the audience that listens knows me. So, I've done some prominently Amish themed things to show visibility and representation for women from my culture. That is my culture. You can't extract that out of me. And part of what happens is that I am approached by people who were born and raised Amish, who, when I do these things and I accurately show representation, they feel like they're less alone in the world. And I just had that happen recently where somebody was like, I just could not, the way that I felt, I just could not. I felt represented. I felt like I was less alone. I felt like I wasn't. Two things can be true at once. You can be queer and you can be Amish. That is the power of representation and community building. How do you do it? You do it by being authentic and true to yourself. You do it by also examining where your values come from, who you are, and what do you believe in, and do your values actually serve for the greater good collectively, or are they actually disenfranchising the most marginalized in our communities and homes?
Yeah. And Alma found the page for Marie Curie and the network of female scientists. So I just brought that into screen share, if you wouldn't mind, Kat. We'll do a little overtime and go through this a little bit here. So this is Scientific American website. This is fairly recent. It's from fall 2024. Let's see, by Clara Moskowitz. And okay, Marie Curie, born more than 150 years ago, is still the only woman scientist many people can name. I mean, you know me too, but whatever. I haven't won a double Nobel Prizes, so it's fine. She's most famous. It's fine. It's fine. I don't take. Yeah, it's fine. Her discovery of radioactivity and the elements radium and polonium. She's less well known for encouraging a generation of women who worked in her laboratory and went on in research because of the path she paved. Although few women in science have reached Curie's level of fame and name recognition, they continue to make gains because of her life and example. In her book, The Elements of Marie Curie, How the Glow of Radium Lit a Path for Women in Science, cool fricking name, published in 2024, author and Scientific American poetry editor Deva Sobel chronicles Curie's life and work and sketches biographies of many of the women who worked with her. Sobel found that few people are familiar with the network of researchers Curie nurtured, yours truly included, as well as many other aspects of the renowned chemist's history. Quote, everybody knows her name, but hardly anybody knows anything about her, she says. Curie died of illness related to radiation exposure in 1934. And then there's an interview that follows, and I mean, it talks about some of her cool freaking achievements, like the fact that she was already world famous. I mean, 2 Nobel Prizes, 1903 and 1911. If I'm not mistaken, she was one of the first winners. I think 1903 was the first year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Leave a comment because it helps engagement on the channel. Also, let me know in the comments. I will come back and check next time I'm on, probably 30 and 60 in probably 2 weeks, but whatever. I will come back and check. Let me know your favorite woman scientist who is not Marie Curie. Let's see how many people know.
Oh my goodness.
Good one.
So that quote that she said, people know everything about, they know my name, but they don't know anything about her. That quote, I literally cannot tell you how viscerally I reacted the first time I read that quote by her. That's how I felt my whole life, pretty much. People know my name, but they don't know me. They don't know anything about me. They don't know that I love Maya Angelou's poetry and that I might make paintings as an outlet for the things that I've seen that I can't talk about. They don't know that I do all of this stuff that is like for me outside of all of the activism I do. They think they know me, but they don't know me.
I have learned over the years, there is a vast gulf between being visible and being seen. But we could do a whole show on that. Maybe we will soon.
Do that.
Yeah.
We should do that. And you know what we should talk about? We should talk about this book and talk about being seen. That's what we should do, Ember.
All right, stay tuned, folks. We're plotting and scheming already. Maybe it'll be next month. I'm not sure if we have something planned or not. We will keep you posted.
I don't know. It's my birthday month, Ember. You just need to understand. I'm about to exit 40. So now it's my birthday month, and April's looking kind of cray. It might be
April
June.
do be that way sometime.
Yeah, it has to be March or June. I'm just letting you know off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get it all coordinated with the production staff. But it's a thing to look forward to coming soon. But for today, we need to tuck this show into bed, whatever euphemism you care to go with. I'm winging
Put it to
here,
bed,
folks.
okay? We need to say
Yes.
peace out.
Absolutely. But first, we have to do the thing. We have to thank our channel members. Thanks, y'all. There's a bunch of you, and it changes daily, but it does help. Joining gives you the graphics, the perks, the priority comments, all sorts of stuff like that. Also, thanks to our here's a list. Hooray! But it does change every day. Every time somebody joins or gifts a membership, whatever the case may be, it's so many people. But we do appreciate the hell out of you folks. We also have to thank our patrons. And we have an updated list. Dan D, Logan Fisher, Fern Lovebond, Amanda McLeod, Sydney Davis, Johan, Eric Ozols, Rion, who was in the chat earlier, Sunny Shell, Phil Calderone, Kathy Cotton, Tara S., Aaron Coalson, Michael Wiseman, Deborah Grace, Jena Miyu, Jamie West, Shannon Gray, Anna Stevens, and D. Murphy. And if you want to help out Skeptic Haven and don't want to give any money to Google, you can join them and be on that list. Patreon.com/Skeptic Haven. This is a nonprofit organization, folks, and they're trying to do cool things. Any way you can help is phenomenal, fantastic. And if you're short on cash, I understand. I am very poor myself. You can still help. You can click the like button. That helps bring algorithms' attention, the almighty algorithm, the only real power in our universe. And you can subscribe, join us for future videos, be part of the live stream chat. We would love to see you. And you can share. The share button is the most underused button on all of YouTube, yet it makes the biggest difference because it gets a video in front of people's eyeballs on other platforms. Share it to Blue Sky, share it to Facebook, share it to, that place where the Nazi guy hangs out. Wherever you want to put it there. It's one button. Just do it. It helps. We appreciate it. I think that just about covers all the things. I don't have my formal end of show notes because again, we're just kind of going with it. Right. Show's coming up. Mondays, Black Free Thinkers. Thursday, The Sunny Spot. Saturday, Global Atheist 30 and 60. And of course, more Women Atheists Unload. And let's talk our crown jewel call-in show on Sunday evenings. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for being part of Skeptic Haven. We appreciate the hell out of you. Good night.
Love you.
Good night.
Slow up, no, I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no, I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play